Welcome to Rebel Rankings with Stephen Willis. I am, of course, your host, Stephen Willis. Thank you very much for joining us from the palatial Central Florida studios. I'm going to give you my rankings of different categories of players in Ole Miss history, mainly during the era of which I was alive, which I was born, by the way, in 1976. If I miss anybody, hit me up in the comments below. I'm more than happy to talk about it. I'm willing to listen to all perspectives, but this is my rankings of different lists that might be relevant in Ole Miss football. So without further ado, let's get started with the most electrifying offensive player in Ole Miss history. Number 5, Roel Preston. For anybody that grew up in this era, he hit a tweener part of football. He was here during Billy Brewer's last year and Joey Dunn's season. So we were offensively challenged in 93, and at 94 was an interim year. But he absolutely showed out. He was famous for his diving 6 foot in the air into the end zone. This was in the era that Randall Thrill Hill at Miami was making headlines for acting out at the Cotton Bowl, and it just went around college football, diving into the end zone, to the point where the NCAA actually outlawed diving into the end zone as they cracked down on taunting as a result of those Miami teams. He is from the Miami area. I think he lives there now. But the way he got to Ole Miss, he was a junior college player that went to Northwest Community College. During those 2 years when he was there was obviously the Liberty Bowl game with the Red Death defense, and I think the Gator Bowl's in there as well. But it was a point where Ole Miss football was at a high point. So he comes to Ole Miss and really shows out. He absolutely one of the players that whenever he got the ball in his hand, I just knew something good was going to happen, and I really look forward to him scoring. He averaged 18.1 per catch in the interim 94 season, 8 touchdowns, 38 catches for 688 yards. And this is an era where we didn't throw the ball that often. Although in 94, I believe that was the first year of Josh Nelson. In 93 would have been Lawrence Adams, and we completely changed our offense and started running the option a little bit. And it is what it is. But Roel Preston, number 5, most electrifying player in Ole Miss offensive history. Number 4, Pat Coleman, 88 and 89. He actually followed J.R. Ambrose, who is an honorable mention on this list. He's not going to show up on the list, but J.R. Ambrose was quite fun. 88 and 89, he averaged 20 yards per reception. He was the key deep threat electrifying cog in John Darnell's offense in 89 when they threw the ball across the yard. It was really neat to see a team throw the ball that much. And that actually preceded the Steve Spurrier at Florida trend that was going to start the very next year. When I was a kid, and this would qualify with me being a kid, because during that football season, the 89 season, I would have been 13 years old. We actually went to Oxford twice for that. We saw the LSU game that we lost at the very end, and we saw the Georgia game. That was the John Darnell to Reed Hines pass. Pat Coleman opened up the defense. He was the original slot receiver. Even before college football was using slot receivers, he was able to fit into that role, and he was so shifty side to side. He had a big breakout game against Arkansas State in his career, but averaging 20 yards per catch as for a career, and almost 20 yards per scrimmage touch. That includes rushing all through his career. Is nothing to sneeze at, and just a fantastic player. And if he would have been in a different era, like now, he would have really shown out. He would have really moved and evolved very well, him and Roel Preston both. Number 3, Mike Wallace. just pure unadulterated speed. Every time he ran the ball, he was a threat to take the top off of any defense that he played, whether it be Alabama, Florida, the whole shooting match. He caught a long touchdown pass in 2007 from Seth Adams in Oxford when we played Florida, and was a big player. By the end, he was returning kickoffs as well. Those 1 or 2 times a game where a deep ball was coming to Mike Wallace would literally cause you to anticipate in a great way. I mean, it was unbelievably fun. The early part of Mike Wallace, I was at Ole Miss with him. So I'm kind of familiar with that group and the inner workings of that staff. But Mike Wallace absolutely showed out and showed up in the biggest games he played in. The Texas Tech Cotton Bowl in 2008, or I should say 2009. The LSU game in 2008. All of which he showed out in. And he also pulled defenders away from Shea Hodge and other receivers that made the offense that much more effective. And we'll tell you another person that made him more effective coming up at number 2. But that's number 3, Mike Wallace, most electrifying player in Ole Miss offensive history. Number 2, Dexter McCluster from Largo, Florida. Great player, unbelievable player. Every time he got the ball, he was a danger to take it to the house, no matter where he was on the field. He had a knack for not taking a straight-up hit, as small as he was. That probably was learned because during his freshman years on a kickoff return, Vanderbilt almost killed him. I remember that meeting very well. So it was probably a learned skill by Dexter McCluster to take these glancing blows. In his early years at Ole Miss, he played wide receiver, and it wasn't until 2008 and the advent of the Wild Rebel did Dexter McCluster really shine. You saw that in 2008 and 2009, and whether it was a screen pass, a swing pass, or him taking a direct snap, he was a threat to take it to the house at all times. You could never sleep on the guy. The anticipation level of the Ole Miss fan was just unbelievably peaked. Everybody was jazzed up whenever he got the ball, and it really makes you wonder if those first 2 years, I realized Ben Jarvis, Green Ellis was here. What if he played running back from the start? There might not be a record that he didn't know. It was unbelievable running back and unbelievable person, Dexter McCluster from Largo, Florida, which I believe is outside the Tampa area. My favorite play of the Dexter McCluster era was probably, believe it or not, the 80-something yard touchdown in the Cotton Bowl in I guess that would be 2010, January 1st, 2010. Against Oklahoma State, whenever it was just a completely defense shooting match. That was the game that Jevin Sneed really got hit hard and affected him the remainder of the game. But that is interesting to see. And it was fun looking back at him being such an offensive threat. It really brings back some great memory. And the number 1 player, most electrifying offensive player in Ole Miss football history is John Avery. There's only one player that could have the nickname for other things of being John Avery Fast. The 97-yard run against Arkansas where he goes untouched, and it was a touchdown at about the 15-yard line. There was a kickoff return against Alabama, I think that year as well, that got called back because he dove into the end zone. A game that Ole Miss was in. It was very, very upsetting. But even against LSU, that big LSU win that everybody thinks of, John Avery played a key role in it. Everybody points to Stuart Patridge and Grant Hurd and all the stuff that happened on the outside. But John Avery in the backfield made it work. Now, it also helped in 97 that he had a running mate named Deuce McAllister. And it allowed a little bit of a thunder and lightning dynamic. But John Avery was an unbelievable player. He was a running back in 1996. Ole Miss was on probation. Nobody probably remembers seeing that because of the TV ban that Ole Miss received. But the man showed out in 96. The man showed out in 97. Leading them to the Motor City Bowl and that. But coming off of the probation in that period of time, off of that doldrum, that 93, 94, 95, and 96, that 4-year period, 97 was huge. And it really would not have happened without John Avery. He provided the elite talent that Ole Miss lacked. There were some good players, but there weren't very many elite players. And there's not a corner that he couldn't turn. You weren't going to catch him in the open field. And just a fantastic player. And that Motor City Bowl win led to consecutive bowl games that would have went all the way up until the Cotton Bowl in 2003, but they got ripped off in 2002, even though they were 7-4, and the Independence Bowl took a 6-5 Bama. But John Avery, by far the most electric player to ever handle the ball in Ole Miss offensive history. There you have it, the top 5 most electrifying offensive player in Ole Miss football history. It was a good list. You know, you think back to Royal Preston and Pat Coleman and those guys, and even to some extent John Avery, to the memories that they gave me growing up. It was a pretty cool thing to go through. And I do think everybody on this list would have evolved great into modern day college football. Could you imagine seeing John Avery in an offense like this? Could you imagine Dexter McCloster running the spread? You saw just a little bit of it at the end of the Ed Orgeron reign whenever he let Hugh Freeze call the plays. But it was really interesting to see that dynamic. And look back on it. But those are my rankings of the top 5 offensive football players in Ole Miss football history. What are yours? Hit it down there in the comments. Let me know what's going on. Remember, share, like, retweet, do whatever you need to do. That's how we're going to grow this. We don't have any place we can send you to, but those places you can help us out by expanding our reach. So thank you very much.